everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Squad 4 podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Eli.
I'm Anton.
And I'm Yohan.
Yep. And we're back at it again. And for this episode, we'll touch in with, I guess, stories of bravery. You know? We'll mainly focus on people in the first military. We'll have also firefighters, right? We'll have some firefighters. And yeah, sadly we can't, as much as we'd want to have every single story in here, we can't. So we each chose at least, I think, one or two. Yeah, one or two stories, and we'll just share around and we'll talk about it after we share. So yeah,
Yeah, a lot of here, all heroes deserve recognition. So,
that is true. Yes, I think as I guess civilians, that's one thing we don't we take for granted. We always see the negative side of like the police, or we see the negative side of the military, but amidst of that there's also, I guess, people in those professions that they're doing like real good. Like you have cops rushing into a burning house just to get the kid of the out inside of the house, or you have men, or you have people, I should say, that are running into gunfire, towards gunfire, just so they can save one of their comrades. So yeah, as much as we want to have all the stories, we chose a few to share today. So yeah, let's start. Shall I start? Shall I start it off?
yes, you can start this off, Eli. Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. Actually, before we start, few the stories we're about to talk about, we'll have some links also in the description down below. So if you're interested, you can check out the story more. You can use our links as reference, I guess you could say. So yeah. Um so we'll start the story back in 2017, specifically during the Marawi siege. First Scout Ranger Regiment, the Philippines, obviously. There was a squad, or a platoon, and this platoon was led by a captain, Captain Romel Sandoval, whose nickname was actually Daredevil. I, I guess after the story, you'll see why this nickname fit him. So throughout the entire, not entire, sorry, um, I guess their deployment there, Sandoval has never had a man really killed. He always made sure that he brought all his guys back home. One day they were held up in a house, and they all got surrounded from all sides, and they were stuck in this house. Captain Sandoval and his troops. Um, yeah, and it's pretty hard situation once you're stuck. I guess from a military standpoint, you're surrounded like that. So they had you know um terrorist militants in all directions. Yeah, and they got into a big firefight. I think it lasted around 8 minutes or so. 8 minutes solid firefight. And at some point throughout the firefight, Sandoval was actually able to get some of his men um, out into safety. They were almost able to break away from uh, the, I guess, ambush. But he realized after a while that there was actually one man who was left, and he got stranded in the very bottom, and he could not get out because he was surrounded on all sides and he was already injured. He had been shot. Now, Sandoval, he could have waited for reinforcements, medevac, or even, you know, to ano his to gain more troops. But I think at that moment he realized that if he didn't go back for that his guy, that he would have died. And so he made the choice to go back and to save one of his comrades. So he fought his way back down, floor under, to get to the his injured comrade. And he was already surrounded by militants. So there he went back into the to the hell, I guess you could say the hell, to the gunfire again, just to retrieve one soul, his one of his soldiers. Yeah, and the gunfire eventually got so overwhelming that Sandoval actually also got injured and he could not get out himself. So, in a last ditch effort to preserve the life of his man, he actually shielded his comrade who'd been injured, and he shielded him with his own body. And he took, I think, multiple rounds. I forget where, but he took multiple rounds um, to his body. And I think, yeah, and that's he eventually died there due to his wound. Now, in the end, I think the comrade that he saved, yeah, so he was able to save him, and he did that in exchange of his life. And yeah, that's the whole story. Like, and yep, after the Marawi siege, he was also given the Medal of Honor, which I think super well deserved. You know, just from the story itself. And yeah, that's the end of Sandoval's story.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, just looking at, looking back at the Marawi siege, like how big that was, the entire Marawi city was pretty much destroyed. You know, um, it was, I think, it was really, it was a lot of un, I think we didn't expect quite that much destruction, when it came to it. I mean, when you look at the videos, there's some videos wherein the Philippine Air Force actually like bombed the city itself, and these are houses of civilians. And then, yeah,
Yeah, it's this unfortunate thing in war is when war happens, destruction also follows. And like Marawi was a good city, but I mean, like it looked really good. At least when I've seen what I've seen. But then when it was taken over and they had to push in, and they were already planting what IEDs and such, right?
yeah,
And just yeah, that's a well, it's not. This isn't the first time it's happened. At least in well, obviously the world, because we've seen like in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, even we've seen destruction of like people's houses. Yeah, but yeah, I guess we can take from Sandoval's story is the how much he cared for his troops, and he wasn't. It wasn't like he was a super low ranking officer. He was a captain, and his I guess his dedication to his troops and um I guess his care and commitment is I guess something we can all learn from and something we can appreciate, about him
yeah, the great
among other
leadership,
things.
the great
Yeah.
leadership, yeah, because yeah,
All right.
all
Let's
right.
move on. Next story.
So I will go next. This next story is about Sergeant John A. Chapman. This is in the mountains of this happened in the mountains of Afghanistan back in 2002. So while he was on, by the way, these are I got this from USO. Links again in the description down below. So while on a reconnaissance mission, the airman's Chinook helicopter was struck by rocket-propelled grenade and enemy fire, knocking a Navy SEAL on board out of the helicopter and into enemy territory. The damaged aircraft quickly performed a controlled crash landing a few miles away from the fallen SEAL. As the helicopter they had been operating was damaged and unable to transport the crew or rescue the SEAL member, Chapman called another helicopter to their location. Once they had made it to the second helicopter, Chapman and his teammates immediately launched a rescue mission for the fallen SEAL and returned to his last known position. Upon exiting this second helicopter, the team came under enemy fire and they headed toward higher ground. Unfortunately, the enemy attack increased and the team came under additional heavy machine gun fire, now from only a few yards away. Chapman ran ahead of his teammates, pushed through 5 feet of snow, exposing himself with minimal coverage or protection, and charged directly at the Al Qaeda and Taliban forces. He was shot multiple times, but he still pressed on, engaging the enemy despite his fatal injuries for more than an hour. Because of his brave and selfless actions, Chapman was credited with saving the lives of his teammates, who were able to secure the mountaintop and survive. So, yeah, that is the story of Sergeant Chapman. And once again, that um, it shows like the leadership. Like you're not there on your own; you're there with your teammates, and he didn't leave them behind, even though it was intense fire. He still came back for his men who fell out of the helicopter. Um, and actually, they yeah, they got back and they secured the mountaintop and they survived and until reinforcements came. And especially against Al Qaeda in Afghanistan and Taliban. Sorry. Um, yeah, and he was shot multiple times, but he still kept on going. That just shows the determination, I guess, and the the leadership that he has because all of his men followed him. If he gave up, he was the leader. So if he gave up, all of his men, wherever he went, his men would follow him. And he was a surgeon. So yeah.
Yeah, there's something like seeing the person who's supposed to be leading you, leading from the front. It's really inspiring because if you think about like um some like there if you look around or not around, like you look in some places where leadership's required, sometimes you'll see like leaders leading from the back. Um, yeah, but it's like compared from leading to the back against leading from the front, like you're the first man in, out, whatever. Um, there's something about that where it's like inspiring for the I guess his the people he's supposed to be leading, and
Yeah.
that's yeah. It's like it's actually amazing to see. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And he sacrificed himself too. Uh
Yeah,
Unfortunately he didn't make it out anymore, but he led his man to he led his man the best way that he could. And he became a Purple Heart recipient, a Medal of Honor recipient, and an Air Force hero right after that as well.
yep, well deserved.
Very much.
Yeah. Shall we right next
All right.
move on to the next story?
Johan from
Okay, so the story I will be talking about actually comes from a book. Well, most of the details of it comes from my book. It's by Francis Villanueva. He's a Filipino writer and I think he is a what's this called? A lawyer as well. But the book is called Theodores Missions and the Men of the Philippine Light Reaction Regiment. So as if you've seen our uh other episodes, then you'll know that they are like the Light Reaction Regiment is our probably our best of the best, our Delta Force of the Philippines. So story comes from one of their missions of their operations. So this story takes place in Sulu in the southern part of the Philippines. So I forgot which group of what's this called of the light reaction company was uh there, but they like right before leaving to go back to their base in Fort Magsaysay, they were given a tip off, I think, for one of their HVTs which they were trying to look for like the past, I think, months or probably years. And he was located in a village which most of the people there were protecting him and being loyal to him. So they were at first hesitant to actually go there, but seeing that it could be done and it is possible to actually get through there, they had to find ways to do so. So they put out a plan. They needed their um, vehicles to be blending in with the vehicles in that area, because of course you wouldn't see a Humvee or a helicopter in that area, because most of the Philippines at this time was running a bit um, poor. A lot of the areas in the Philippines run poor, so most vehicles that we see in the metro will not be seen in the lower poor areas. So they were also told to use civilian clothing, because it is better to actually blend in to get through the village so that they wouldn't actually be seen from a mile away. And actually, one of them, their support gunner, he was carrying, I think, I forgot what it's called, a machine gun, and he was gonna be dressed as a pregnant woman and hide his machine gun in his uh clothing to get through, so that they wouldn't seem that they are suspicious to other people. So when they were sent in, actually, they actually passed right in front of the house of the HVT, or the high value target. And the high value target actually waved at them, because they thought, he thought that the light reaction regiment operators, were going to a marriage, actually, and they were just passing by. So he actually waved at them, and when by the blink of the eye, they swiftly killed the HVT, and well, the rest of it is history. So like, you'll see like a lot of the um special forces of the modern world, their uh training is all about speed and precision there, sorry. And they the light reaction showed us that we don't need speed and that much precision in every mission, like we heard in the story. They needed more stealth than speed. So with a little more patience and all that, then maybe we our special forces will get through things. So it's another story of bravery. And actually, one last thing about that story is um one of their operators in that operation was actually killed when they were, I think, extracting from the mission. And the person that
Yeah.
gave them the information of the about the location of the HVT was actually, I think, killed like a few months later, because they found out that he was the one who gave the information out. So a lot of high risk operations will have risks also after the operation. So we always have to be wary, and at least remember those who are killed in these operations. But Light Reaction Regiment doesn't disclose a lot of their operations, and this is the reason why I know we all know this as in a untold story of bravery, is because most missions of the Light Reaction Regiment is credited to other units. So sometimes the police, sometimes the military, and this specific operation was credited to the police. So we just have to give a little bit of credit to the light reaction regime.
yeah, for them it really doesn't matter if they get the credit or not, right? They're just there to do the
Yep.
job. So they're the, I guess you could say they're the quiet professionals of the Philippines. Um, yeah, it's that's a big reason why a lot of people blur or black out the faces of special ops guys,
Yep.
right? Because also their names. Sometimes they give like fake names, right?
Yeah.
To to some people, because they really have to protect their identity, because their family, their friends could be at big risk, even um you know to be in a big risk just because they're related somehow to the special ops guys. Yeah.
High risk. Yep.
Uh, circle comes back to me. Right. My next story is actually also about the Navy SEAL in America. So around the invasion of Iraq, I think specifically in Ramadi. So there was a SEAL platoon in Ramadi, SEAL Team 3. They were part of SEAL Team 3, and there was a platoon in Ramadi. One of the SEALs who was attached there was, his name is Michael A. Moonsor. So yeah, Michael A. Moonsor was, I believe, their support gunner. He would carry the 4249, the saw. Yeah. So him, a few other SEALs, I think their sniper team, and their sorry, not Afghan, sorry, Iraq interpreters were on a rooftop, and they were engaged. Well, they were surrounded by, you know, enemy forces. Actually, like a few minutes before that, it was totally quiet. We're in the rooftop. There's no action. Seemed quiet, and then just in a blink of an eye, in a second, they were just hailed with gunfire and RPG rounds, and they were surrounded. What they didn't know is actually one of their enemies was able to get real close to the building, right up next to the wall, and he threw a grenade up and up into the building on the rooftop where the everyone is held up. And then actually before it fell on the ground, it hit Michael A. Munsor, the chest, and then it fell on the ground. And no one else actually saw the grenade besides Michael. And he could have ran, he could have ditched, but at that moment he decided to jump on the grenade so that he would be the he would absorb all the, well, fragmentations and the explosion itself. And yeah, so he jumped on the grenade and he took the brunt of the blast, and he was critically injured. They were able to get a hold of medevac. They were able to get him out, but at some point in the medevac, um, he he just he didn't make it after he passed away in the medevac before he could even get back to base for treatment. And because of that and its heroic sacrifices for, uh, first of all, his teammates, you know, saving not just his teammates, actually, even their Afghan interpreters, they he earned the Medal of Honor, which extremely well deserved. Not often that you hear about, well, yeah, grenade, like people jumping on grenades. I think as human beings, the moment we hear or the moment we know something is dangerous, like like an alligator, we wouldn't really go close. Same with a grenade. If you're trained that you know the grenade is, then you wouldn't really go close. But amidst that, overcame, I guess, his instincts, and he decided to jump on the grenade and save everyone on that rooftop, which is actually really inspiring.
That is just amazing, you know. He jumped on a grenade. Like, how many seconds does it take before a grenade explodes?
Three,
Wow.
around
So
three.
in around like in less than 3 seconds, he made the decision to jump onto the grenade, you know. I mean, at that point, I guess like you wouldn't know if you're gonna survive or not from that. And wow, to save his teammates, that is just amazing, you know.
Yeah.
The next story is about Army Ranger medics who saved lives of the fellow soldiers while under fire with blood donations. So this is going back to Afghanistan. So on a hot summer night in Wardak province, Afghanistan, in 2019, a Special Operations U.S. Army Ranger Raid Force began an assault on a compound with enemy targets. As enemy fighters fired back at US forces and the Rangers began to close in on a target, there was a huge explosion, injuring 3 Rangers. Amidst rounds of machine gun fire, rockets, and grenades, 2 Ranger combat medics, Army Staff Sergeant Charles Bowen and Army Sergeant Ty Abel, leaped into action to save 6 American lives that night. Pulling the critically wounded behind cover from any enemy fire, Bowen and Abel quickly began performing advanced surgical techniques and providing Rangers with blood infusions with supplies they had on hand. While the medics stabilized some of the injured, unfortunately, 2 of the injured Rangers were losing blood and fast. Unfortunately, Bowen and Abel had already utilized all of their blood units for other injured service members. Knowing that this was a life or death matter, the 2 medics decided to attempt the Ranger OLO or the ROLO titer protocol, in which a volunteer transfers his or her blood to the injured Ranger on the battlefield with the assistance and equipment from the medics. The procedure at the time was relatively new and had never been done in the middle of combat, but Bowen, Abel, and a volunteer blood donor were able to pull it off. As enemy fire continued to rage overhead, the 3 worked quickly to transfer large quantities of blood from their volunteer to 2 injured Rangers, effectively saving their lives. Throughout the procedures and other life-saving techniques, the 2 medics also continuously shielded their patients with their own bodies to prevent further injuries from enemy fire. As the wounded were loaded onto a helicopter for evacuation, Abel kept up a steady attack against the enemy to provide them with cover. Bowen and Abel treated a fatal hemorrhage, triaged 2 additional casualties, and tended to several other injuries that night. Their calm demeanors under pressure as they worked to save the lives of their fellow soldiers while uh, under fire demonstrates incredible dedication and valor. So, yeah, once again, like I believe there were medics, and while in the middle of war or of fire, a firefight, in the middle of a firefight, they were transferring blood from a donor to a ranger, and at the same time having to worry about enemy fire, shielding the rangers with their own bodies. Like that is a huge what's the word? A huge sacrifice or like a huge uh like that just shows how much they care about each other when they're in war, and also like they're like brothers essentially, right? Like camaraderie, is that the right word, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The bond is strong.
yeah.
The yeah, and well, this is actually our last story, and this is where we'll end before I get any darker because I'm running out of light. Anyway, no,
That's
no, no.
it.
But uh, we I guess yeah, like we take the service of our service members sometimes for granted. You know, they've they've fought, they've run into fires, they've run for gunfire just to save lives, save people, right?
Yes.
And I guess there's a lot of us who wouldn't really understand why they do that. Why would you run into well, first of all, why would you run into a fire? That's like what, 1,000 degrees Celsius, right? 850 degrees Celsius hot. Why would you run in a fire? And you know, the really the drive, determination, and the passion of these guys to uh save lives. They're willing to give their lives for each other or for another person is real inspiring, and I guess sets the standard. They really set the standard for anyone who's looking to join the particular service that they were in.
Yes. And not all heroes wear capes. And to all of the frontliners and first responders out there, we want to say thank you for all that you guys have done, all of your sacrifices, and for the life saving measures that you guys do. And thank you so much. All right.
Yep. And
I,
you can end. You can end. Go ahead. Go ahead.
all right. It's been me, Anton.
I'm Eli.
And I'm Yohan.
And until
Okay.
next time, see you guys. Bye.